So, hello. I wonder how much those transitions cost to create. They're very impressive.
Thousands of dollars.
Very good. So I'm Jason. I'm the director of organic at Booking.com. It's great to be here. I'm a long-time lurker of SMX. I've been going to the ones in the US and London. First time actually presenting at one, though, so it really is an honor to be on stage for a change. I've been in SEO around 10 years, and because I don't do that much conference speaking, I feel it was important to at least cover me basically, but a bit of time in travel, and I come from a technical SEO background. So I'm here today to specifically talk about some of the adventures that we've had in SEO over the last couple of years, specifically in cannibalisation, and it is definitely an adventure. So we'll be going through some context and the effect of cannibalisation, at least from an internal corporate point of view, and then going through some experimentation processes as well. So firstly, and this is probably the most important thing that I'll talk about today, the spelling. So there is a Z in the American version, there's an S in the English version, British English. I'll be focusing fully on this one, even though I was too lazy to change my laptop language settings, so I spent most of the time creating this with the wobbly red line of Microsoft annoyance. So I once read, all presentations should start with a Wikipedia quote, so this one's mine. So in marketing strategy, cannibalisation refers to a reduction in sales volume, and I find it interesting that Wikipedia specifically noted pages, almost like they were thinking about web marketing in advance. And this is essentially what happens. So Google gets confused, or allegedly confused. There is a collection of different content that it finds, and it slowly surges between the two. And it leads to a situation where sections of your full capacity for these pages is factored out. When you read around the web, there's plenty of different articles and things that you can definitely find. There's plenty of different concepts and theories around how this can affect big corporate websites and small websites alike. And you get concepts like authority loss, like somehow you're burning some magical authority that you've actually built on a domain level, even though Google says there is no domain authority. Or you're burning it on a page level at scale. Sometimes it's search engine confusion. Are search engines really confused in this context? And then wasting crawl budget. This definitely makes sense because you've got many more pages. And then the concept of poor page quality. So poor page quality is very, very interesting as well, because surely with the post-Panda world, with recently regularly recurring strings on websites, how that actually affects. So here's an example of something that we found online. So this is a good article on the subject. So Ale Barisovic wrote this article on Search Engine Journal, and he has a very convincing argument to say that you're burning your page authority. You're ending up with multiple pages, and it's more pages that you have, you're actually hurting your SEO at scale. And then you get into the concept of actual effects that we've been able to see. So Pi data matrix refers to this as semantic flux. Distilled refer to this as flip-flopping. But there's the concept of unreliable rankings. So you're surging in and out, and this is exacerbated by RankBrain to some degree. And then the concept of ranking degradation. And I'll go through both of these in detail. But ranking degradation meaning that the more pages that you have ranking, the less successful they are at it. We've even seen so much to say that, well, I'll go into the data in a little bit. So this is flip-flopping in action, or semantic flux. So this is an example of one of our region pages, and you'll notice on all the data that I share that the axes have been removed. Apologies about that, corporates. But for the most part, you can see that 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and even 3 days in 1 week, there was a ranked page that kept on disappearing. And it kept on being sometimes swapped out with an alternate page, and then other times just completely disappearing. And so this is what we see happening. So this is semantic flux in action. So we're in second. We're pretty happy with that. I mean, second position in a good non-brand keyword is very nice. And then one day, a second ranking appears. Even better, we've got additional space on the SERPs. But it didn't actually work out that well, because the moment the second page arrived, or at least from what we observed from our analysis, the net ranking decreased, or the net ranking of the top result dropped. So this is obviously very concerning, and you're actually losing traffic overall. And while we don't know that this is an actual feature in Google, and while it's something we've observed, there's so many other things going on, it might not actually be in effect. But I can be pretty confident that Google wouldn't be happy with a non-branded term all being dragged down and fully hosted by a single domain. So this would be great for us. It would be great for our competitors as well if it was them. But I can't imagine Google ever really wanting this situation. Sorry, where's the drinks? I'll get some water. Water, please. Yeah. So, and we don't make it easier for ourselves either. So this is a common example, and Singapore's a little bit extreme because obviously Singapore is both a city and a state, sorry, a city and a country. Thank you so much. But this is a typical example of how we see the booking domain. So we have the city landing page, which is our targeted SEO page, ready to go with everything that we need on it. And then we have a Singapore hotel, actually called Singapore Hotel. We have our city, our country landing page as well, so that the optimization for on a country level, so we have them for every country. And then we also have Singapore search results. I've underlined results for one specific reason, and you'll all think I'm crazy for this, and I'll get into that in a minute. But we have many, many indexable versions of our search results. We do have a safety system in place that I'll explain a little bit later, but between these pages, there's a minimum of 4, but technically 50, 60, 70, with all the different search results that are involved. But there's something wrong with this whole process. We've gone in, we've found something in terms of hearsay, so we've talked to people in the industry, but then we've selectively started going through a process looking for data to support this. At Booking, we're a little bit different. We try and drive everything that we do through data. Everything is researched in advance, and we make sure that there is a strong case for it, and we're very experiment-focused. And when I say experiment-focused, everything we do is wrapped in an experiment. Even so much to say that once they were trying to test coffee in the company, it's not fun to be in the decaf variant group when it's being measured on productivity. And when we started looking in our data, so we started looking actually at the rankings that we had, and 20% of the cannibalization that we detected actually seemed pretty good cannibalization. We had more than one ranking on the home page, sorry, on the first page of Google in the top 8 results. And this, on paper, sounds like an incredibly good situation to be in. Do we want to just sweep in and start making changes and maybe lose this? And complexities of scale. So Booking is pretty big, rather annoyingly so at times. So in the US alone, we rank for 4.6 million keywords, and this is based on SEMrush's data. We have over 150 million indexed-ready URLs, so these are URLs that we actually want to be indexed, plus infinitely more because of our crazy search result system. And then we have it in over 40 languages, and we're scaling those out all the time. If we were to physically go through on a one-by-one basis and try and fix these individual instances of cannibalization on a per-keyword basis, we launch pages quicker than a whole team would be able to even catch up with. So we would fall behind kind of as we go. And there's lots of different examples of it as well. So LP is landing page, SR is search results. And the direction doesn't always flow in the same way. Sometimes our landing page variant is the much stronger page and is ranking higher up, and then the search results are causing the problems. Sometimes it's search results and landing pages in the opposite direction, so the search result is dominant. And then sometimes we have a ménage à trois thing going on with all sorts of different things getting in the way, including languages. So I'll let Ross cover off detection a little bit more later in his presentation, but just very quickly, Systrix, Searchmetrics, these are all great systems to be able to figure out where you are ranking. In terms of cannibalization, Authority Labs is great as well, because you can go and ad hocly go and check these things. Systrix is especially good right now because they have a keyword breakdown called cannibalization, and it will show you all of your URLs and the keywords that are attached to it. So after looking through the data, we went through things with quite a fine-tooth comb, and we found that the most common forms of cannibalization on our domain are between languages, so British English is quite common with American English, and then the concept of our landing pages conflicting directly with search results. So then we started researching around again, just to make sure that we had a good idea. And Patrick Stocks posted this, I think he's presenting here today as well, and a great article on cannibalization isn't necessarily a risk, it could actually be an opportunity. And an opportunity at Booking sounds like an experiment. So we started going through our facts. We know for a fact that our landing pages and our search results have multiple instances of cannibalization. They're always appearing together, or not always, regularly. And our languages are also having lots of instances of shared. The problem with languages are it's very, very fragmented, and it was difficult to be able to get good data. So what we did is focus specifically on the search results and landing page issue. So going back to our original hearsay concepts that we found online, we're in a situation where authority loss. Do we know that this is a case? I mean, I'm pretty confident that we don't know. So, well, we don't know if we're burning authority. There's no guarantees. Are we confusing search engines? Well, just because both pages are ranking doesn't mean that Google or Bing is confused. It just might think both pages are relevant, and it might be a good reason. Crawl budget. We can be pretty confident, or at least in concept, we are burning additional page counts because there's more pages. And then poor page quality. I don't think this is the case either, because when we put the pages together, and this is only Copyscape, it's not exactly technical, but we put these pages together in Copyscape, and we saw that there was only a 4.5% overlap of content, and this is footer content, this is our global navigation. So shifting this back to a product concept, because we're thinking about launching this as an experiment, let's get into the product world. So we've got learning, making sure that we've actually had a concept to begin with, identify the actual product pain point, what are we trying to solve, so cannibalization in this case, building some hypotheses, building a minimal prototype to be able to test said hypotheses, and then moving through that experimentation and learning cycle. So the test, hypothesis, build cycle. Cool, so let's set down some hypotheses. So hypothesis A, cannibalization is bad, very bad, apparently. And it causes confusion for search engines. By targeting one page to a single keyword, my pages will rank more efficiently. Now that sounds pretty fluffy at best, so let's set some success criteria. I will know that this is successful because I will observe a reduction of the duplication of listings. It's nice and easy to measure how often are we actually being cannibalized, how many times are we detecting similar rankings. And then hypothesis B, cannibalization is bad, just like the other one. Where multiple pages rank for a given term, if we combine their authority, just like Patrick's doc says, maybe there's an opportunity there. It will cause them to be more effective at ranking. Is A plus B better than A or B? By combining them together, can we make one super page? The success criteria in this case, we'll get additional traffic and observe increased rankings. So back to our crazy search results setup, just to clear the air, as it were. So the situation where they were in before, so this is kind of how things were in the past. So we have many secondary results pages that you can navigate to by just using the search system. So you've got all your room information and all this stuff. And then we canonical those up to a master search results page, either on a city level or a region level, as whichever is most appropriate. So this is the way things are set up now. So we don't have billions of pages that are available. We just roll them up to around 200,000 or so. In terms of the experiment itself, we're going to take all of these pages, including the master page that we're rolling up to, and update all of those canonicals to our landing page. This is to prevent redirection strings, or canonical strings in this case, where one page is canonical to another, that canonicals to another. So we're updating everything. And this is how the bucket's set up. So the control is exactly like it is now, or exactly like it was then. We have multiple search results. They point up in control. They point up to the master search result. And then we have landing page just kind of sitting there by itself. Nothing changes. Both can coexist happily. And then in variant, but this is where we're going to make our change. So this is what we're measuring. So variant is slightly different in this case. So our secondary search results pages and the master search results page all receive that canonical update and point towards the landing pages. This is all done in pairs. So we don't just do it en masse. Everything gets split in half, and a city or a region or whichever taxonomy that we're testing on in this case get paired up. So a search results cluster gets paired up with an appropriate landing page, and that's what gets shuffled between our bucketing. And this is the difference between the buckets. And we're going to go through quite a lot of data slides, and there's going to be some questions as we go. So this is the seasonality of the bucket variances between them. So this is the difference in traffic between control and base for both page sets. So while it's a little bit spiky, we can be pretty confident that not much is happening. And this is where the tests come in. So this is audience participation time, so apologies in advance. But blue line, variant, that's the thing we're changing. So these, in this case, is our search results pages. So they're having all of their canonicals pointed from themselves, historically, to the landing pages. So in the room, did it go higher or lower? Just shout it out. Silence. Hands up for higher. Okay, quite a lot. Hands up for lower. So these pages were having canonicals shifted away from them, so that happened. But this is intentional. We wanted to shift the authority from these pages. We took them from search results and tried to roll them up into our cannibalized pages. So we're trying to push this over to our landing pages. And the good news is, canonicals work. Jesus, look at that. So these are the pages that are receiving the canonicals. So the other one's lost. So is this higher or lower for the landing pages that are receiving these new canonical links? There's a bit of a murmur. So I'd say higher. Hooray, the line goes up. Everyone gets pay rises. Unfortunately, though, the line doesn't really seem to go up as rapidly. I mean, this is a different base. These pages had more traffic to begin with, which is why we chose that these were the redirection, the canonical sources. The canonical targets. So we're targeting these pages with all those canonicals, and we saw that lift, but that's good. But is the lift enough? Is it actually going to affect our net traffic? So this is net traffic. What does everyone think? You can probably guess where this is going, but even so, have a guess. Nowhere? Well, it does something. Yeah, so it kind of flattens out. It doesn't really go anywhere. So by using that secondary authority, we put that somewhere else. We tried to create this super page set, and yet it doesn't really seem to go anywhere. Using causal impact, we can actually see that accumulative burn down rate. While there is a low level of confidence in this specific experiment, it actually burns away. So that's annoying. That took like 3 months and lots of data science, and people got paid for this. So this is the situation we're in. We ran an experiment. We actually ran this experiment multiple times on different taxonomy levels. But yeah, it died. So what happened? Well, what we observed is, and after we kept on going through the ashes of what was left of the experiment, we saw that in these cases, in the 20% that I mentioned, the aggressively capable side of rankings, that our secondary result, yeah, we used a canonical. We even went nuclear in some options and used a 301 redirect, meaning if you landed on these pages, you would get redirected to another page. That was annoying. But even so, you landed on these pages. So this page was ranking, and say, for this sake of example, in 5th. What would happen is we would canonically forward, and then it would just disappear. Now, it had enough of an effect to actually detect the traffic lift on the higher ranking, but in terms of net traffic, that was not the case. So, have I come all the way here to tell you that cannibalization is good, and to put thousands, if not millions, of additional pages into Google, all for the same content? I'm not saying that, obviously. It's a little bit different. So every single site is unique, and what we were finding is at the top of the SERP in the hyper-competitive travel sector, and I'm sure it's similar in other sectors as well, that even with that additional buy-in and that additional power that you're getting from these secondary pages, it isn't enough to make a meaningful difference. And having that secondary 5th, 6th, or 7th position, given that it's actually coming at the result from a slightly different perspective, so it's a search result, not a landing page, it actually has different content, you lose overall. You lose in net traffic. Cool, so heading back to our hypotheses, we will know this is successful because I will observe a reduction in duplications of listings. Well, yeah, we saw that, and we saw a reduction. So hypothesis A, that works. Hypothesis B, for some reason I put these on a different slide template. I don't know why. But hypothesis B, we know this is successful because I will observe an increased net rankings and additional traffic. Rankings did increase for the page that we wanted to, but they weren't net rankings, and we net lost traffic. So yeah, disclaimer. Booking.com is obviously very unique. Your site is unique also. This is why testing and the hypothesis testing build cycle is so important. So test everything, be pragmatic, and actually work through these processes. And if you liked any of this presentation, and it's the sort of thing that you spotted issues with, or you noticed something that we could do better, please consider coming working at Booking.com. And you can find, I'm not on Twitter, by the way, so please grab me on LinkedIn instead. And yeah, try up SEO on careers.booking.com. Thanks.
Super. Thanks. Good. Let me check Slido. There came in another question. I just have to read this now. How do you ensure ceteris paribus in your experiments? Example, popularity of terms, existing backlinks, etc.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Let me just. Maybe you can bring this up to the screen. So the question was, how do you ensure, and I'm not sure about the question now, how do you ensure ceteris paribus in your experiments? Example, popularity of terms, existing backlinks, etc. So this means that all conditions are the same, really.
Oh, no, for sure. So yeah. The good thing about search results are they do actually generate lots of backlinks as well. So we tried this experiment in both directions to try and normalize things out. And we also tried it on different taxonomy levels as well. So we couldn't guarantee that everything was obviously even, but we knew that when we redirected away or canonicaled away, that the net loss was there. This isn't the only experiment line that we did on this, but we felt that it was quite important.
Yeah, Super. So thanks very much once again, Jason. And let me welcome now Ross on the stage. And please a warm applause for Jason. Thanks. Super. And this is at the same time your welcome applause. Huh?
Thank you very much.
And we're kicking off now the second part of the session with Ross now.
That's right. Well, thank you very much, Jason. That was absolutely fantastic. So Jason's kind of taking you through the theory and some experimentation about what happens with cannibalization, if it's good or bad. I'm going to talk to you about how we actually fix it when we find it. So quickly, a little bit about me. Do we have a little clicker somewhere? Dankeschön.
Yeah, water?
We're all good, thank you. All right, my name is Ross. I'm the managing director of Type A Media. As Alexander alluded to, we do a weekly web show called The Canonical Chronicle. It is a little bit of a mouthful. And we also are kind of known for our 4-day work week. So because our agency only work 4 days a week, we need to come up with some slightly different tactics so we can get more done in a much shorter period of time. So, before we get into it, I want to tell you a quick story about growing up. When I was growing up, excess was quite a big theme of my life. I don't know if you've ever had this, like your mother when you were a kid would say, don't eat too many sweets because you'll spoil your appetite for dinner. She would also say things like, don't sit too close to the television because it'll damage your eyesight. Maybe don't run too fast because you'll end up falling over. And then you become a teenager, right? And I was a bit of a rocker, a bit of an emo kid. Any rockers in the audience? Yes. And that was it. Your hair's too long, your music's too loud, get that haircut. They said some other things when I was that age, but we'll skip through that as well. The problem is that excess can sometimes be quite bad. And when it comes to keyword cannibalization, that's also a kind of running theme. If you think of yourself standing in a kind of round room, with lots and lots of doors in the room. They're all open and they're all pulling you out of the room. You actually don't move because the force pulling you out creates complete inertia, so you're completely stuck. So that's what I'm going to use that metaphor today to talk about cannibalization, because essentially it is too many URLs and not knowing how to actually rank the correct one. So I'm going to give you some methods to start closing, or at least differentiating those doors or URLs. All right, so this literally happened a couple of weeks ago. A client calls me up and he says, Ross, we have some cannibalization issues with our hero term. They're a beer brand, so their hero term was IPA. No problem. I'm just going to go to Search Console. I'm going to go to the performance report. I'm going to look at the queries, type in IPA, flip it onto pages. There's all your URLs. Job done. Thanks very much. He's like, yep, great. And then they obviously started talking, and he's like, actually, can I get it for all keywords, all URLs, all countries, all languages, and all devices? Thanks. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. Not a problem. Problem is that the site has got 500,000 pages on it. So when it comes to looking at cannibalization at that scale, it can get quite difficult, as I'm sure you guys would agree. I understand you've got quite a big one, a big website that is. It's 4.2 million pages or something like that.
4.2 million rankings.
Wow, 4.2 million rankings. So if you're looking for cannibalization on that, and then actually looking to see where you can fix it, that's going to be quite challenging, unless we have a programmatic solution. Today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to actually fix this completely programmatically. The main bit I want to draw your attention to is the Google natural language processing. Has anyone ever used natural language processing in the room? Couple. All right, the smart guys are always at the front. So this is what we're going to go through. I'm going to show you how to build a full keyword map of the entire site, find where the cannibalization problem is, then visualize it. So this is classically something that we don't usually do, but the thing is, if you've got 4.2 million pages, and then I just do a bunch of entity analysis on it, and I've just turned your 4.2 million keywords into 10 million keywords, so what? You've just got more keywords. You've not actually worked out where the problem is. So we're going to cut it with some revenue data. So if you're going to like a senior stakeholder to get buy-in or something like that, nice and easy. Then the fancy bit, actually doing the natural language processing. And then I'm actually going to show you how to make content briefs just to automatically spit them out and give them to a content team to fix. If you want to follow along with the sheet, you can email conference@typeemedia.co.uk. There's an autoresponder that will give you the Google Sheet as well as all of the scripts. I think I've taken our API keys and our licenses out. I've triple checked it. If not, can you please email me and tell me, because I don't want you to all blast my API keys because they're really expensive. All right, first and foremost, how do we get this keyword map? I want a big 100,000-yard view of what's going on so I can start seeing some patterns. To do that, I'm not a developer, so I'm going to use plugins. I'm going to use Supermetrics for Google Sheets. And essentially, it looks like this. So you'll notice here that we've got the actual URL and the keywords side by side. Now, if you go into Search Console itself, you can't do that. You can't do that for multiple URLs. You can only do a keyword at a time. So if you do it like this, you get a big, massive list of URLs and duplicated keywords. And in this instance, if the keywords are duplicate, it's cannibalized. All right, this is actual client data. So this is what it's going to start looking like. We're going to get this raw data out. Keyword map in the bag, nailed it. All right, so now we need to actually see where the cannibalization is. So you know that example I was telling you, and the client said, we think we're getting cannibalization on the term IPA. Well, they really, really were. They're getting 81,000 impressions for that one keyword. They're getting 43 clicks. They're a global beer brand. They're a leader in the field for IPAs. They should probably get more than 43 clicks for that term. 11 competing URLs. That's probably where the problem is. All right, so first and foremost, we're going to pull all this raw Google Search Console data in, and we're going to start doing some categorization. I want to get to this place where I can see the keyword, the amount of URLs it's been physically cannibalized by, the amount of money that they're potentially making, and then a big list of all the URLs so I can individually go through them and work out what's going on there. All right. Oh, and this is the actual data behind it. So IPA's got 11 URLs, and it makes them about 38K, and ale makes them about $2,000. So in terms of priorities and where to start, we can do this at scale and get a nice list. So I can go to my financial director and say, this is the one that's going to make you the money. We should probably go here. All right, so let's prepare the data. We want to take your Search Console with all the duplicate keywords and just get single keywords in there. Who uses Google Sheets over Excel? Hands up for Google Sheets. Hands up for Excel. Luddites, the lot of you. I can't believe you're still using Excel. No, I get it. So unique is essentially a deduplication formula, which does what it says in the tin and creates unique keywords. We're then going to count up all the keywords in Search Console with a COUNTIF. I'm sure you do that every single day. This is a bit more complicated. We then want to go and pull all URLs for every keyword and transpose them along the top. And we do that with query. I think this is where Google Sheets really starts killing Excel, because it's a kind of pseudo SQL language that allows you to query large data sets and do computation inside the formula. If you don't already know query and you're an SEO person, I highly recommend you have a look at it. This guy, Ben Collins, is like a G Suite engineer guy. He's got a bunch of amazing tutorials. G Suite themselves have got a really good YouTube channel as well. And there's a site called Coding is for Losers, which is essentially an SEO guy who started as a developer, became an SEO, and now he just makes all these really cool kind of sheets. All right, so we now need to find where the actual issue is. 500,000 keywords. Can't really do anything with that, so I need to start visualizing what's going on. So in this instance, on the vertical axis, we've got revenue, and on the horizontal axis, we've got impressions. The size of the bubble is how badly cannibalized it is. So you can see there, beer, which is the main thing they sell, there's 24 URLs currently ranking for that, and that's the lion's share of their single keyword traffic. They should probably fix that. Similarly, you can actually have a look at, if you're not speaking to an FD or trying to get tons and tons of buy-in, maybe you're speaking to the guy that runs the blog and you just want it fixed because you know there's a bunch of long-tail opportunity you're missing out on. If it's in Data Studio, you can just cut it and say, show me everything less than 5,000 impressions. There we go. So you're getting different models for different people. All right, the fun bit. For those who don't know what Google Cloud Natural Language is, in their own words, it's an API for analyzing text using pre-trained machine learning models. which is incredibly fancy. It's another way of saying the robots are absolutely taking over. Essentially what it does is it gets entities, which is going to be very important, detects sentiment, analyzes the syntax, and classifies the content. Perfect, that's exactly what we need. If you want to try it for yourself, you can go to their product page. So if you want to go to Google Cloud Natural Language, you can put a bunch of text in that box and hit go, and it'll start pulling out all the entities for you. Now that would be really cool if we could do that at scale across 500,000 URLs, because then I can compare and contrast the ranking versus the entity and start to see why it's ranking weird or cannibalizing. All right, why is it important? Think about what cannibalization is for a second versus the content on the page. The stuff that Search Console gives you is within the context of your domain, your internal links pointing to the page, the structure of the content, the backlinks pointing to it, the whole thing. So that document sitting on the web, Search Console uses the entire context of the web to rank it and give it that keyword. Natural language processing just looks at the text. So if you can imagine, I bet this has come from the way Google analyzes a page for the actual text. They're probably using some sort of natural language detection. So if we can remove the context of the rest of the website and just look at this one document on the page, if it's totally different from your Search Console keyword, you've optimized that badly, and we can see that at scale. Just said that there. All right, so let's prepare this data for analysis. You remember this guy? This was our original sheet that we made. What we now need to do, the sad thing about this API call is that it will not go to the URL and extract the content. We need to do that ourselves. So what we're going to do, create a drop-down list. I think we've all done that before. We're then going to pull the associated URLs from our main scrape that we've just done, and then we're going to scrape this from the page. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm sure we've all heard of a data validation, so I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs and go over that too much. But I will talk about scraping the content from the page. So Google Sheets has something called import XML, which essentially means that you can write this little bit of code into the cell, just a normal formula like you would. In Excel, I think you can do import HTML instead of XML. And you can pull the XPath in and start scraping the page. This is the one that I've used for this particular client. Yours will be completely different. If you don't know how to do it, when you go into Chrome, inspect element, and right-click and copy it, it'll come out as XPath, and then you can just paste that back into your sheet. Okay, a little bit of a curveball. It doesn't do very well in non-English languages. It's okay, but it's not perfect, so we should probably translate the content we've just ripped into the sheet. Google Translate is built into Sheets. So you can literally just go equals Google Translate, cell reference, and it translates the entire thing. Black Hat friend of mine says that's how he creates content for multi-language sites. So I don't know anything about that, but it's something you perhaps look at. All right, so let's run the natural language call. If you want to learn to do this for yourself, there's this woman called Alicia Williams. I am in love with this woman, completely platonically. She runs the G Suite, and she teaches you how to use app scripts. She teaches you how to run automation inside of Sheets. It's absolutely phenomenal. Her Twitter profile, second to none. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'd highly recommend it if you get your hands on the deck to go and have a look at her stuff. She also has her entire code repository on GitHub. So you can actually just take it. The thing that I've made for you today is just a Frankenstein version of her thing. So I'd highly recommend you go and have a look at that. Some small downsides. Who's a kind of half developer in here? Who's got some development chops? One guy, proud, unreal. I'm a developer, fuck yeah. Yeah, good man. I'm not, but I try to be. I managed to do this in about 4 hours of learning time outside of work. You're going to need to learn app scripts. Google's got a course on it, thankfully. A tiny bit of JavaScript, like tiny. Like you're going to need to know what a variable is, what a loop is, and just basic syntax. Again, it took me about 4-ish hours, and I am by no means an exceptional student. I'm very much head in the clouds content boy. I'm not the developer guy. So if I can do it, you can absolutely do it as well. This is what it looks like. Non-developers are like, I thought you said it would be okay. It is, because that's the only bit of code that actually does the API call. How cool is that? The rest of it is actually just set up to set the sheet up and get it into the right syntax, into the right columns. The entire thing is that 6 lines. And I've sent it to you on email. Also, you'll notice that when you go into the script itself, you can just change your API key. So get an API key from Google Cloud Natural Language, put it in, press the entity analysis button, which will now be in your ribbon if you've downloaded that sheet, and it will literally just do it for you. Easy peasy. And this is what you get. You get all the URLs, the main entities in them, and the salience, and a bunch of other stuff with regards to sentiment and things like that, but we're not going to go into that today. Here's what it shows. I thought this was really interesting. URL 1 ranks for the term IPA in Search Console, but the entities are around grapefruit explosions, riots, and fruit. Because it's a grapefruit IPA, it's not a standard IPA, so that's bad optimization on that page. URL 2 ranks for the term IPA. It's actually a pint class, so it's got nothing to do with IPAs. That's probably why they're not getting the clicks, right? So that needs re-optimized or changed. Third one, it is an IPA, but it's for dogs, not for humans. It's actually a meat, non-carbonated thing. It ranks for the term IPA, but the main keyword entity associated with it is dog. Not great. Last one, hemp IPA. This has got a little bit of cannabis oil in it. This ranks for IPA on its own, not for hemp, natural oil, CBD type terms. Again, the entities say that this is what it's about. So Google knows what it's about, but within the context of your site, it's like, should I? Is this an IP? Like, it just doesn't know because you're not giving it strong enough signals. You can have outputs like this, which is quite nice. You can imagine getting that for every single major keyword with a nice little report of how much revenue it's actually hooked onto. So in terms of actually getting stakeholders to make change, makes it really easy. We can then put together some basic actions ahead of that. So like you were saying with regards to, do we canonicalize it? Do we re-optimize it? Do we just take it off the site and 410 the thing and be done with it? That will give you some relatively good actions to take off the back of it. All right, so we kind of know what's going on now, but we still need to fix it. We know that the problem is, we know how to fix it, but we need to actually get in and do it. So this is where SEMrush comes in. Has anyone ever used the on-page SEO checker? No one, okay, interesting, one person there. So when I signed up for a SEMrush account and I looked to the on-page SEO checker, I thought, this is some Mickey Mouse bullshit. I don't need on-page. I know on-page, right? Title's good, H1's good. Let's build some links. Let's get this thing going, right? That's a very flippant way that I tend to think. But when you actually dig into it, you can give it your URLs and the new entities that you've just pulled out from the entity analysis, upload them. It will then Google those keywords, rip the top 10 out, take all their HTML, and do a big TF, IDF style analysis, and it'll tell you the exact keywords that you should be putting on the page compared to what's currently on it. Which is kind of cool, I thought, and you can automate all of this because they've got an API. It'll also tell you all the on-page optimizations to do based on your new keyword targeting or the correct keyword targeting to stop cannibalization. And because it connects to the actual site audit itself, it crawls the entire site. It'll also look at it from a technical point of view as well. All right, so that's it, guys. Get to work, get your briefs, and hopefully you can knock out your keyword cannibalization. Thank you very much.
Oh, once again. So, super, thanks very much. First question, do we get your slides?
Yes.
Yeah, so good. So because this was your first questions, do we get your slides? And I made a mistake because I had to ask Jason before. But the good story is, or the good news is, you're sharing your slides, and the rest we just copied in our brain, what Perfect. Jason was telling. So let me see. Do we have questions? So the first one is, as said, solved. And I think there was one question which was related to site links. And so the question was, how do you make a difference between cannibalization keywords and site links shown?
The difference between cannibalization and site links shown?
Yeah. And there was a second question about this, and maybe I just I repeat this, so it's was the question how to cope with site links. They produce multiple rankings and high impressions, however low click rates. Huh? And would this, let's say, destroy your analysis, or would this be no problem?
Well, it would be no problem. The reason being is if you've got a core URL and a bunch of site links, and even if it's about the same thing, when you do entity analysis outside the context of the domain, it's going to tell you what should be on the page and should not be on the page. So the report at the end isn't a be-all, end-all report that you then start slashing and burning a bunch of pages, then accidentally kill your site links. It's just something that kind of references and says, here's the major areas for optimization. So if it was site links that got pulled in, it would end up just showing these are all the same type of entity and there's no optimization needed. I think the big caveat with a lot of this stuff, and we were very programmatic in our approach to this stuff, it needs a human eye and it needs a human touch. And that's actually a really great question. Like, it might actually break if you've got tons and tons of site links. That might be completely redundant, what I've just shown you. But the processes involved, if you're taking sections of your site, especially for e-commerce, I think it would still be useful. But really great point. It needs a human eye always.
Mm-hmm. And so one of my questions was when you were presenting, Jason, and you said, well, booking is special.
Everyone's special.
Everyone is special, of course. But when you maybe take a different domain, you say, well, this kind of test I was doing, would these apply to other domains as well? Or you say, no, well, booking is just very special, and this what we are seeing as results we can't apply to other domains? Or what preconditions would you set to say, yeah, you could repeat such a test you were producing?
Completely. So is this on?
Yeah.
I can't hear myself. So the good thing is this will work at every scale. The problems that we were having specifically was because we had so many pages. Mm-hmm. So being able to go through on an individual page basis, as you were talking, was just beyond what we were capable of doing. So if anything, we had to do that at scale because it was the only way to do it. But this could easily be done on a very small site. So say you have a couple of hundred pages, you could easily go through each one and actually be quite strategic with your methodology. Whereas if it's a medium-sized commerce site, that's when you start wanting to get into the world of scale testing, so you can actually start drawing real scientific conclusions. And then if you're past the million-pager point, then you definitely must experiment.
And maybe this is related to this. So ranking is always one thing. However, you have to be successful, and so you have maybe other key metrics besides pure rankings, which is maybe conversion rate. Did you recognize any change, or how was this impacting your conversion rate on booking?
So everything that we do is always wrapped in a conversion rate experiment, so it was pretty flat throughout the process. Our search results are a very good conversion point, so that is something that we factored in, but didn't notice any real movements. The other kind of key data, so rankings were very important, but the key process and the key proxy for our process, testing process is traffic, so that's our core metric. And we also check visibility through the period and everything that's connected to it.
With regards to that on conversions as well, so the little example that I gave with the different types of beer, if you're looking for an IPA and it's a beer for dogs and you don't even notice because maybe you've had a little bit too much and you're buying more and you get a bunch of meat beer for a dog, then that's going to not only damage your conversion rate, it's going to damage your brand reputation as well. We've seen quite an interesting increase in conversion rate from doing this sort of stuff. Caveat, only with the major head terms. All the chunky middle stuff and all the long tail stuff, we've seen no major change in making those updates. I think that might be to your point because there's not enough data to make it significant. So if there is change, you could literally just put it down to like seasonal change. It's not big enough to actually say, oh, this is because of the cannibalisation. Yeah,
and we ran it on 100,000 plus pages in each case. But and the thing with the dog-flavoured beer, I mean, some people are into that. So you never know.
So let me see this. One more question. It's about if you have cannibalization for a long-tail keyword, and the one is going to the front page and another one to a very strong landing page. And what would you do, basically? Is this an issue? Would you say, well, no, this is exactly what we wanted to find out, or what is perfectly okay? Or if you have a keyword, a long-tail keyword, Would this be any issue? And I'm not sure whether my question was clear. I'll maybe repeat this. What would you do if your front page and a strong landing page cannibalized for an important long-tail keyword?
How long tail are we talking?
Yeah, well, that's maybe an interesting question.
So I think that shifts back into the idea of conversion. So if this is a specifically long tail keyword, then a targeted page seems to make the most sense there. If that long tail keyword is overlapping with your brand in some way, then maybe the homepage is better. But I would definitely just work through that. Yeah. Try both, see what happens. And then I'm guessing in this case that this extremely long tail keyword, and I've made it extreme in my head, would be better placed on this secondary page because you can properly customize that experience. And if it is overlapping with that home page, ask why. Are you talking about those same subjects? Thinking about the concept of page overlapping, page quality, repeated content? Maybe you're talking about the same thing, and I would definitely look into that.
For me, that's an internal linking problem. So we've seen it time and time again where all your power's in your homepage regardless. One of the things I'd actually start recommending you do is do a cite command. So cite : domain space and then your keyword in quotation marks. Pull the top 10 for that keyword and crawl it with Screaming Frog and see if you're internally linking to your core cornerstone page. If you're not, your internal linking's broken. Because if you've just done a cite command plus keyword, Google's just told you, here's the pages I think are the strongest on your domain and most related to this keyword, but you're not internally linking from them to the page you want to rank. 9 times out of 10, it's just because all the equity is stored somewhere and you need to start dispersing it.
Good. Okay, there's one question I don't understand properly. It's from Varsha, and she wrote me 3 times now. Why is my question not getting through? But I wasn't sure. So, to Jason, how do you decide on search metrics for hypothesized ideas? I struggle with the unknown. And I'm not sure whether I do understand the question. Do you understand?
I think you're talking about the ideation process in general. So, there is a lot to it. But ultimately, it's you start with a question, you start with a theory, and then you start trying to build the case of if it is worth testing. So the great thing about search metrics and Systrix is just as good. SEMrush works well as well. There's a huge area of data there for you to be able to explore into. And with cannibalization, you detect this as you go. So that's where the ideation is sourced from. And then you go through a regular product process of actually setting that problem statement down, thinking about what the success criteria should be, and then prioritization. Do you think you're actually going to get some business from this? Is this going to drive traffic? And that's the process. Obviously, there's specific data processes that you can work through, but there's many of them, and normally just sitting down and just being thoughtful is the best way.
Can I ask a question about the person who asked that question? I can almost guarantee that they work in-house. And the reason being is, the way that I know if there's a problem or cannibalization on a client site is because they're on the phone screaming at me saying, fix our fucking site. So one of the things I'd look at is set things up in your analytics to see those drops. Okay. Content grouping is such a major thing, and if you're using GA, the amount of GA accounts I get on relatively well-known domains, no one's doing content grouping. It blows my mind. That will tell you very quickly.
Yeah. And maybe a final question. So when you are testing, time could be a factor. So that you say, oh, in the first 3 months, oh, everything's going perfectly well. Yeah, see, my thesis A or B is wrong or right. And after 6 months, you realize, oh, now Google is behaving maybe different. How long, or since how long you're you let this test run? Or would you say now, after a certain while, you say, yeah, now I'm sure this is right. My hypothesis A is right and B is wrong.
So that is a very good question. That is difficult to answer and stay within the bounds of corporateness. But if you're running things for 3 months, just thinking about the way that p-values work, seasonality is different. And with the way that pages are bucketed, over time, they obviously diverge. So you need to find that balance between confidence and divergence. And that is something that is quite hard to do, but is definitely a worthwhile investigation.
Yeah, good. Super. I think this was quite an interesting session, very much in technical details as well in the last, and super happy that we will have your slides, unfortunately not Jason's, but thanks once again for a wonderful presentation to Jason and Ross. Thanks.